Oh God. Um, so welcome to the start of the How to Love Freely podcast now. Uh, I'm Jose. This is the first episode, and the first episode's about beginnings, about origins, and how we can grow from that, how to start anything, kind of. So let's get a look around, everybody. Introduce yourselves. Ryan, if you want to start.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and this is my first time on the podcast. Looking forward to some meaningful conversations.
Hell yeah. All right. And then I got my brother Gustavo, same room with me.
Yeah, I'm Gustavo. I'm Jose's little brother, and we're hoping to have some good conversations with y'all.
Yeah, something really deep and insightful. I've wanted to do something like this for a long time, and funnily enough, I couldn't get it started. I didn't know how to. Which I think that's like a big problem a lot of people kind of face sometimes, how like getting a project off their feet in the first place. Because I don't know, I think about it a lot. Like once we get the ball rolling, it's really easy to just kind of keep it rolling, right? Like that snowball effect.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you want to talk about beginnings, like you want to start anything, you want to learn a new skill, you want to start a new project. The hardest part is just getting, start moving your feet and putting yourself in the right direction. And then after that, it starts to become second nature. And that's how you grow as both as a person and as like your skill set, to pretty much, it sounds cheesy, but do whatever you like as long as you're willing to try it first.
Yeah, you can do just about anything as long as you like put your mind to it, which is cheesy and it is corny, and I think that's not a bad way to start this conversation, but I think it's the easiest way, and I think it's the part that like disconnects from people the quickest. Because it's so easy, everybody can say it. Like, oh, just start it, and then you can start doing whatever. Like it's a lot easier said than done, and with that, like, well, how do you start it? How do you start a novel? Like, what are the first words that should be written on your page? I had struggled with that, like the first lyrics inside of a song that I wanted to write, something like that, where I don't know exactly how to start it, and because of that, I don't know how to continue it. And so I make that as kind of an excuse to just not do it.
It's especially with creative projects. I think it's easy to have like 10 different ideas of how you want to start something, be it a book, a song, just an art piece. You have all these ideas that you can use in your head, but it's sort of putting them together in a way that lets you build on top of itself. Like you're trying to build it brings back to like when you're little and you have like drawers full of Legos, and you're like, all right, what can I do? You have all these pieces before you, but you don't really know how to start. But once you put the first piece down, connect it to the next one, and then it's sort of just you have to let it flow out.
Yeah, like as it forms itself, as you put more pieces, you're able to see that form better, what you want it to become and what you don't want it to become. You can kind of start pruning it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really hard to know what to prune if you don't have those ideas laid out in front of you. Like if you don't start writing something that's a little bit crappy, you're never going to be able to start pruning it and refining it. You can never make you can never make the bush the shape that you want it if you never plant it.
Yeah, if you want to talk about trees, like I know a lot of people like try to. I mean, trees have always been any sort of plant. Like is always like this symbol of humble beginnings. You see the biggest those big those redwood trees in California that stretch out like stories and stories into the sky. Mm-hmm. You look at like the little ones that haven't started to grow yet, and they're barely like an inch off the ground. And you're like, okay, so you start there, and then eventually you get there.
Yeah, you get all the way up to that big girthy redwood at some point, but it's gonna take a long time to get there. That's just how it is.
And I think that's the most intimidating thing is like especially I know from personal experience the hardest part keeping me from starting something new, is the fear. Okay, what if I'm not good at this? What if this? What if I'm embarrassed? What if what I make isn't good enough? And that's such a debilitating and like stunting feeling to, especially for like creative growth, because no one is good at something right off the bat. If you want to be good at something, you have to put in time, but most importantly, you have to start. You can't get good at something if you never try it.
Yeah, once again, it's like knowing about that form. You don't know where that skill is. You don't know what clay you're even starting to mold with. And so that's actually a really good point. I like that. The thing is, how do you overcome that hurdle of embarrassment? I think that's the part, because not everybody, but I'm pretty sure there is this growing awareness of a lot of things that have set us back before, just in general, like the general, if you want to call it the selective subconscious, is kind of awakening to that. I see it everywhere, where people are starting to become more and more aware of their generational curses and their problems, and they're starting to break those. It's like, it's not just this generation, like it's been going on, but I feel like it's a lot more widespread this generation than it has ever been before. That could just be me, just because I'm living in this time, knowing that, and I haven't lived in the 80s. I don't know what that was like exactly. So it could have had similar things there, but I do think that is a very big part of our generation, is starting to break those and starting to awaken to all the things that are happening around us that have kind of set us back. And a big part of that for me was realizing that same thing, that like I was embarrassed to start things because I didn't know how it would sound. I was afraid to look amateurish. And I don't know exactly what it was that flipped, that made me think, you know what, let me just give it a shot. I'm not really sure what changed there. And I think that's like some of the theories I want to dive into to today, seeing what could drive that kind of change in us.
Like that sort of introspection, that, or I guess not introspection, self-awareness would be a better word, of just, because I know what you mean. I think we've all felt that, a very similar feeling of, this sort of like what's the word, like this self-fulfilling prophecy that I don't think I'm going to be good at something, therefore I shouldn't try because I know I won't be good.
Yeah.
And that is, once you sort of realize that, it's really a ridiculous sort of prospect to force on yourself.
No, it is. It's just like, I'm telling myself I can't do it. What the hell? Where did that come from?
I've never done this before. I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there are a few tools as versatile and as important in someone's own their self growth than like real proper, unfortunately pretty unforgiving introspection. That kind of realizing that what is going on in my head may not always be accurate to reality. It may be something that I'm putting there as an excuse. To not like pursue dreams, as an excuse to not start passions or hobbies. This sort of putting it in the way yourself so that you have a reason to stay stagnant.
Yeah. And I always loved Dark Souls bosses as a metaphor for that, because they're just these huge hunks of like just whatever creature it is towering over this little player character that you are, and you're supposed to take that down. And I feel like that's what a lot of those projects are for us. They are our Dark Souls bosses, where there's just huge undertakings that we look at and you're like, there's no way we could possibly do that. And then you realize it's step by step. It's every move that you gotta learn how to break away from the pattern so you don't get hit. Gotta learn where to put in your damage. You gotta learn when you can build, when you can't. And that does take a lot of introspection. You gotta know yourself really, really well.
I love that analogy. I'll turn this into a whole different podcast. We're talking about our Souls project. But that's no, I guess I never really thought of it like that, because I mean, if you want to keep going with that kind of analogy, like those kinds of challenges are really turn a lot of people away from if you want to keep going like this, from games like that, from situations like that. But as a long time fan, you sort of realize that it is something that you ease into. You're not going to be good at it the first time. You play it first, and then you realize, okay, there are things that I need to improve on. I'm not doing this right. I'll work on that. And you build up from level one, let's say. And that it's pretty funny that you bring up those like bosses, because they're huge, they're daunting, and it's easy to be discouraged when you see something like that. But you put in the time, you pay attention, you see these things that you're able to improve within yourself, and then before you know, you're breezing through stuff like that.
Yeah, and how many people have like spent hours struggling against one of these creatures, and then like kind of realized that there was an easy way out too, like the Minotaur in the first one. Like it.
Oh god.
Yeah, like oh crap, big ass bull coming at me on this narrow strip, and then you find out you can just make him walk off a cliff. Like it's that easy. You don't even have to fight with him. And I feel like that's another issue that we have, is that like we'll see these massive undertakings and think of it as it is too much, and not realize that we have other solutions to get to those. Like it doesn't have to be all chipping away and nickel and diming hard work. Like sometimes there are easy ways to what we think is really big.
And if you want to keep going along that path, that really pays dividends to like the benefit of having like a teacher, having someone to tell you the things that you can improve on and to do better. Like I remember, dragging one of my friends through his first time through a game like that, and there are things that I learned the hard way, and I was able to save him some trouble and heartache by telling him, it might be more beneficial to do something like this, but then you have to kind of toe that line of you don't want to hold their hand, because finding out is half the fun.
Yeah, they still got to learn somehow. Like that life has surprises, just like that game does. Like it's gonna catch you off guard. It's supposed to. And even if you have experience with it, you still have to remember that those experiences are there.
Mm-hmm. No such thing as bad experience. Just some are a little bit more abrasive than others.
Yeah, it's all how you look at it. I think I started tracing back like everything I can to a single idea, just like revolving a theme. And every time I think of a yin and yang, I think of that, because it's such an obvious symbol, with like the white could be like good, but inside of that there is like that pain. And so inside of every pleasurable moment, at some point it'll end and come with pain. At the same time, with every painful like emotion that we feel, every painful moment, there is an end to that of pleasure once it does end. And so I try to tie back a lot of things to that, just because everything does have some sort of dichotomy. Like with every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We all know that to be true. Mm-hmm. And I think that, and just in general, like every time that we experience something, we're going to experience the other half of it at some point.
Right, the sort of balance that comes with all things, whether we like it or not.
Right, and if we reject that balance, then we can't ever learn from those experiences. Because if we just accept something as purely bad, like holy crap, this feels so bad, I can't get anything from it, you will never find the pleasure, you will never find the lesson behind the experiences that you were given. And I think that's like the most important part, when you do have that experience, not to attribute good or bad out of it, but to attribute a lesson to it that you can continue with in your life, something that you can carry.
Right, it's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah, and this just in, I think Boston joined right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm doing just fine.
You're good.
You want to give yourself a quick intro?
I don't know what you want me to include.
Just your name and anything that you seem is relevant to the conversation.
My name is Austin, and I have basically been exploring mental health and psychology and what it has to do with my life for basically since I was like 13. I spent a lot of time in therapy, and that's basically it.
Yeah, and I feel like that perspective will give us a lot more different insights here as we continue the conversation. Yeah, that's
it does remind me actually. You mentioned the yin and yang and the balance, and if I could, I did have an old Chinese proverb that my dad has actually taken quite a bit of liking to recently, and it's really got me thinking.
Of course.
The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. And my dad, I've always had a very interesting relationship with my father. We've gotten a lot closer over the years, and so like every time he says something like this, it really makes me think. And he's recently started exploring more of like. I like to think it's because of my recommendation, but he started exploring a bit more hobbies, like things that aren't necessarily, he's a working man. He's done a lot of stuff to keep his family afloat. And so now that my sister and I are both like moved out, I encourage him to just like find things that he enjoys and to just work to find pleasure in everyday things. And we were talking about. I think we were actually talking about literal fruit trees because he's doing a bit of gardening in his yard now. Yeah, and so
what a better metaphor for growth than like starting a garden, huh?
Yeah, and it's being able to watch because he started a few years ago, and being able to kind of watch, literally watch the growth of this project that he's undertaken has been really, really fascinating and almost humbling in a way. But we were talking about fruit trees, and because we planted a handful in the backyard, and we were talking about how man, this would have been awesome to have growing up. You just like run out there and pick some fresh fruit, and it's right there. He said, there's this quote, best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but second best time is now. And I was like, oh shoot! Like he said it so nonchalantly, you almost didn't notice that I was like, oh my god, he's right.
Just dropped a wisdom bomb on you out of nowhere.
Yeah, I was like, I need to go learn how to play guitar or something. But I mean, this was years ago, but it stuck with me ever since, and it really, every time I feel discouraged in undertaking some sort of big project, because I'm talking in circles now, but just because I thought I wouldn't be good at it first, I was thinking like, well, if I don't start now, then I'll never be good at it.
Yeah, if you never plant the tree, it can't grow 20 years from now.
Can't get that fruit.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful quote. It's nice how little moments like that can really start change. Like it sparks a change super fast in your life sometimes.
Mm-hmm. It's still like a huge source of motivation for me. Just that mentality that I guess you could call it like growth mentality. Just that any progress that you can make towards a goal, it doesn't have to be big, but it's always better than nothing.
Yeah. What about when that progress comes in the form of a setback for us? Because that does happen where like we think we're doing really good on something and then we have some sort of setback where we can't continue, and then it's not a speed bump anymore, but it's just a stop. How do people get going again? I think that's like the next part we should move into with this conversation, because now we do have a start. We do have like this idea, like you shouldn't be too embarrassed about starting something new. You're probably gonna look dumb because you don't know what you're doing yet. That's just how it is. And as you do go, you'll get better with it over time. But once you stop getting better, how do you treat that in your mind?
That's an interesting and difficult question. You give me a second. Someone else take over.
Okay. I know personally, and I don't like bringing this into everything, but it's very applicable in terms of life lessons when it's come to it for me. But Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has taught me a lot about how my mind works, because and I know Boston could talk about this too, but I was a big time rager. I would get mad really, really easily because I did start off really well, and I had like not this I wasn't always super good, but if you took me to a party, I was washing everybody there. Like it was I was at least that good. And then I came into this place where people played this game all the time. All the time. Like this is everything they were doing. Like they were racking up hundreds of hours within like the first month of this game coming out. I wasn't that into it. And so going and playing against them made me realize like I'm not good. I'm actually pretty mid at this game at best. And that was something that I couldn't really wrap my head around, because as I would try to progress through this scene and try to beat other players, I realized that I never really I was beating myself up the entire time. I was fighting against myself, trying to stay calm because these people were beating the crap out of me, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I would get so stuck on I don't know what I'm doing that I would stop trying to fight them, and I would either give up or I would get so angry with myself that I couldn't operate playing the game anymore. And I eventually just stopped playing completely, because that's just what seemed right. It didn't seem right to continue playing a game that made me angry, despite the fact that there was times that it did bring me joy. There was a lot of times that I was just so mad that I would lose track of everything else going on in my life. And that's pretty miserable to live, like, especially for a video game. And so realizing that those types of setbacks, like people beating me, shouldn't have been a mark of like how bad I am. It should have just been a mark of where I was currently at. It was just a mark of my progress. It was simply a checkpoint, and I refused to look at that because it made me feel bad to accept that that was just how it was.
You know, that does remind me a little bit of a similar experience. I unfortunately am not nearly as into the Smash scene as I know the two of you are. But I think an equivalent to that was I used let me see, like I used to play a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, which is a very tactical and what's the word? Competitive. I guess competitive would be the best word. Just
Very competitive.
Very competitive. And for a long time, it was like almost like hostile in how competitive it was. And it got to the point where, because I would play, and I would never call myself like very, I wasn't exceptionally skilled, but I would play it for fun. I would have fun, and I would win occasionally, which was enough for me. But then it kind of reached a point where I would take like a month off and then come back to it, and then I would lose practice, I would lose experience, and it felt like everyone else was getting better without me. And
Yeah.
It's a friend and I were playing, and we played probably like 5 or 6 rounds, and then we just was not having a great time, and then we kind of both had a moment where we were like, wow, it's been like an hour and a half, and I don't think we've had fun once. Which is not something you want from a game like that. And so, yeah, I put it on the shelf for probably the better part of like a year and a half. But then recently, I've started to get back into it with that sort of mentality that, like, well, if I never pick it back up again, then I'll never get better. And once I kind of, you play it, and if you want to go back to like teacher-student analogy, you know, I look at things that I didn't do well, and like what it was that happened that like caused the loss, or like what I could improve on, and then I take, not literally, but I take notes on, okay, I can do this better, that like this is a good spot to put this, and you sort of learn from people that are better than you, sort of, even if it means that, even if you're learning while getting stomped on, you're still learning, and it's you get that much better every time. Especially, I would argue that you learn more from a loss, and sort of that yin in the yang. Even though you lose, you picked up a few things that you can use next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think I've been blessed with I have some experience in both of those realms. I played competitive shooters quite a bit, and I am currently playing a lot of competitive Smash Brothers. And I don't know, I think I got blessed with a good mentality when it came to that, because like what you guys mentioned about learning from a loss, I literally had this as my mentality for the longest time, which was if I'm not learning when I lose, then there's no point to play. And so I reached Master's rank in Apex and Overwatch, and I felt like that was pretty good. And so I played those for a good part of a couple years, and then I stopped playing them because I started getting mad when I lost, and I just realized like I'm not learning anything when I lose, so I'm gonna just drop these games for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't play Apex anymore. I don't think it's worth my time. I don't know, that game makes me so mad.
I can respect that. Yeah.
I understand completely.
But when you were talking about Smash, it reminded me of when I first joined the scene, and you were beating my ass, and you were basically like teaching me different things about the game.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had a pretty quick rise where I just pretty quickly started performing pretty well.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
I don't know what to credit it to besides exactly that mindset I had from competitive shooters, which was every time I lost, I would ask somebody some kind of question. I'd be like, what can I do to be better? What can I do in this situation? And I would always make sure to ask specific questions. And it's a mindset that I've tried to keep in my life as well, because it's just super important to be able to look at losses as opportunities to grow.
Yeah. No, I remember that. Like when you had first come in, and I remember really liking that, because there wasn't. I think it's because I had an absence of it in my life. I wasn't the kind of guy who would ask like the right kinds of questions when I was facing a loss, and so I saw that in you, and I was like, that's pretty admirable. But I don't think I knew how to internalize that yet. And part of me definitely became jealous once you started rising up. But I realized that was just because like I wasn't attributing that kind of sort of stuff to my life. And with later introspection, I realized it's because I didn't think I would be worthy of that kind of mindset. I wasn't worthy of that kind of growth. I'd put myself in a box like that. And so getting out of that, I think, was the point of bringing up this topic, because it is really hard to face those losses sometimes, at least when it comes with my mindset that I've had, because I've built up over years that I was not worthy of being better. I was worthy of being where I was at because that's what I had. That is a really stupid mentality to have. I'm realizing now. Maybe stupid's not the right one, but it's not a growth mindset, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help with that. It's a mindset with a lack of compassion towards the self.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like what really sparks that kind of growth, is realizing that your mind has not been kind to itself, and that's what's setting you back. There are certain patterns that we've learned and that have been ingrained in us for years in childhood that prevent us from feeling like we can grow. Something stunts us. I don't think that's true for everybody. Some people definitely have just better mindsets in general because they learned that early. I think is a big part of that.
I think a good growth mindset is you can be like attributed to a good mixture of like humility and pride. Like if you want to like keep going with the yin yang, because you have to have the humility to know that you are not as good as you can be, and that there are things that can be learned, that you can improve upon yourself, but also it feels weird to was it to encourage this, but like the sense of pride as well as to knowing that you're worthy of improvement, that you deserve to give yourself the chance to improve upon yourself. Like the pride in what you do, but the humility to know that you could be better.
Yeah, one thing that I'm gonna kind of change the topic, but I'm gonna keep it on here. Okay. Well, like about like the humiliation. One thing I do, like I play a lot of basketball, right? And one thing that we do, humiliation is a big thing. Like you make like a tough shot on someone, and you call them out, you know. And like pride is like a really big thing. Cause like you you gotta call out people, and then like everyone else is like, ooh, like he called you out.
Well,
Like,
kind of
like
like the
you can't
whole
let him take you like you
dunking
can't
on
take
them
that.
culture, right?
Huh?
Like the whole dunking on them culture, right? Like,
Yeah, kind of like that. Like someone dunks on you, right? And it's like, oh well, damn, he dunked on you. It's like you gotta do something about that. Like you either dunk on him back or you make a shot on him. You know, something in it. But like that's the thing. Everything's just like everything you do to someone, it's like really big. Like you cross someone up. And like everyone like in the crowd, everyone in the game, they're pointing at you, they're laughing at you. And so you like as the person who just got like your ankles broken, right? You're like, okay, well now I gotta get my get back. Like I gotta do something better, I gotta match it. And that just that makes you want to do better, right? Because you've been humiliated, you've been called out in front of a bunch of people. And so that makes you want to rise up, do better. Like, no, I'm not that bad. Like, I could do better.
in a way, prove yourself, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty much what basketball is in a way. Like, from my perspective.
Yeah.
Any form of incentive to improve is good, I would argue.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to do it. I can see how that might be discouraging to some people, but then I think back on, like, once again, smash culture, like disrespecting somebody, going all the way down to the bottom blast zone just to spike somebody again, just because you can, just because you had that extra life, something like that, like just to really rub it in that you beat this son of a bitch, like that's what you did.
Yeah, and there's a difference, like, if you do it with friends, you know it's not, like, that bad. Like, you kind of laugh it off at times. But if it's just, like, complete strangers, you tend to get, like, mad. Like, there's no way, like, you just did that to me right now.
Makes it personal.
Yeah, it makes it personal, because, like, you had no reason to do that. And so now it could either get, like, bad, or it could, depending on how you two are, it could be like a little friendly competition.
Yeah, like rivals, having like somebody who's a rival, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, what was it? You were. So I do want to, because I think that's funny too. Is that and a lot of my friendships, just smack talking each other is a form of love. It just is, and I think that a lot of people see that and will automatically assume that that's like base level friendly affectionate, and I think that's where some people kind of read that signal wrong, because they know that the smack talk is supposed to be a kind thing, like it's just crap being talking between friends, and so them being new wanting to join the friend group will start doing the same fucking thing, and then everybody's all off put by them, because like, why is this person that I barely know talking about my mom like that? Like, that's kind of weird. And so when I guess, so we can bring this back to the topic of like starting things, when starting a relationship, and by relationship I just mean a connection, not romantic, when starting that kind of thing with somebody, what are boundaries that you would draw for that? What are things, like, depending on the level of familiarity, that you would start saying, like, this is okay and this is not okay?
I feel like there's a lot of layers to any relationship. Like I mean when it's like we were saying, just like a connection between two people, like it does take, there's sort of like a trial period almost, where you kind of like you be a almost like reserved version of yourself, and then little by little you sort of like let things slip out, like what was it? I've gotten told by a handful of my friends that, you know, after a few drinks I tend to get a little loud. And that is, for some people who don't know me very well, that can be a bit off-putting, because I'm typically pretty, not like reserved, but I'm pretty like level-headed. And so that's might not be the best example, is you know, you drunk, but I think you kind of let your guard slip, and so these people who you don't know very well, or who you are kind of kept reserve around, see some of those boundaries come down, and that's like, you know, sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes they're a little off put by that. But this is mostly in just relationships, or relationships like between friends.
Yeah.
But there's always some. It's very rare that you're able to come out fully with someone, especially like in short term. Like it typically takes. I would argue that it typically takes like a long time to form a meaningful enough relationship with someone that you're able to bring out just like this is what it is. This is me, no filter, no holds barred.
Yeah, just you as you are.
Yeah, and that is it's almost scary seeing how different you can become to try to please someone. Because I've definitely like seen it before that you know, you hang out with friend group A, and you know, you act one way, you hang out with friend group B, you act a different way, just because that you're sort of fitting the mood. But whenever those two groups come together, they're both kind of confused as they see you like short circuit trying to figure out who you're trying to be.
Yeah, which friend group personality do I put on for today?
Right, and I think that's it's not something that should be encouraged. Like you should be able to be comfortable with people that you call your friends.
Yeah.
Maybe more so comfortable with one group than the other, but you shouldn't be tucking things under the rug.
That's definitely okay. That's really interesting. So I know about the friend group personality thing because I personally have done that. Like I've known how to mask myself really well in certain situations. So if I'm like in a business place, put on my business face, do this, like these very specific things. And there's not very many places where I'm able to just kind of let go of all that facade. And it does feel partially necessary, because there are places where we need manners. For example, like if you're out in public with strangers, like you treat them differently than you do your friends. Like that's just how it is. You don't have that same deep level connection, and so you guys aren't going to joke about the same things. You know, you can't bring up that one specific filler episode of Naruto that you guys both hated because you don't even know if the guy watched the show. And so you have to, at some point you do have to realize that there is a time and place for certain things. And in that way, that means mannerisms as well. And so it is necessary for us to understand how those mannerisms can drop in context with where we're at. But at the same time, that context shouldn't be like around our friends, the people, like you said, we should be most comfortable with. Right? You shouldn't have to feel like you are putting up a mask around them, because that's a lot more exhausting hanging out with them. And it's not really enjoying that time, because you're so focused on like, what am I doing, that you're not really focusing on what are they doing? What's going on around us? The whole reason that you're there in the first place, you don't get to really enjoy it because you're so focused on the mask?
There's layers, I suppose. It's always very it's a very, when you think about it sort of abstractly, it's a very complicated issue, but it's something that we do subconsciously, more so just because it's hard to avoid. It's hard to avoid not doing that. It's hard to avoid not putting those walls up.
Yeah, so let me see. What do you mean by those walls exactly? Like, in what context are you talking about? Like, when you're around friends?
I guess not so much friends. Now I'm thinking about my own question. I guess no. I guess you are right in sort of saying that you do have to, in a professional setting, you act differently to when you're around friends, even like between different friend groups, you can act differently. But I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's those walls can't be. It's not healthy to keep those walls closed to everyone, I guess. So it's fine to keep things professional, things respectful, and not that you should be disrespectful, but things. In certain contexts are better than others, but there should always be some sort of time and place with certain people that you're able to be yourself.
Yeah. I think the idea of the wall is a little bit misleading.
I think you might be right. I think that wasn't the best way to converse.
Because I understand what you're saying, because like I've heard that analogy so many times of like putting your walls up. But I think it's more of like, how would you even say it? Like filtering through gates. Like seeing which parts you're letting certain people into certain parts. You're filtering them. So like if you're going to a bank, you're not gonna really tell them about your ex-girlfriend or something like that, right? You're just there to discuss bank business. At the same time, you're not going to a dinner at Applebee's to start discussing your bank details with your friends. Like, that's not why you went out. Probably went out for those cheap margaritas they got on happy hour.
Yeah. No cheap margaritas, those make you loud.
They're pretty good, Doug. Not endorsement. No endorsements.
Please enjoy responsibly.
Yes. But yeah, I think it's kind of more filtering what you're saying to people depending on your relationship with them.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I think the whole wall would be misleading. It is more gate-esque. It's like you said with the filters. It's like this is a really interesting segue to make, but thinking about like forming new relationships, the most like recent relationship that I've had to build up is with our new cat.
Yeah.
And because that is it's very different. I mean, it's like any pet. But I would argue that 9 times out of 10, if you get like a puppy, they're going to trust you largely right away, I would think. I mean, there's variations, but
yeah, that sounds about right for dogs.
Yeah, it's taken this cat has kind of it's been an interesting almost experiment as to kind of judging, because I've never had a cat before. I've been a dog person for most of my life, but it's been very interesting to see like the different sort of hoops that you not hoops that you have to jump through, but just the different processes that you go through to sort of like build this trust. And it's like, hey, this is a safe place. I don't want you to feel stressed out here. So this is like this sort of this arrangement, this agreement, or not agreement, this relationship that the two of us have. Like we both work. I work with this cat to make sure that that he feels safe and secure, and in return, I feel confident leaving the room when he's there. I come back and the curtains are still up on the hangers. I was like, all right, we're making progress. And in a way, I feel like that kind of attributes to, you do strike this sort of agreement, this mutually beneficial relationship with pretty much every person that you involve in your life.
Mm-hmm.
To some degree, like I trust that I can tell you these things in confidence, and in return, you won't go tweet about it.
Yeah.
It's a big relationship building block is that sort of sense of trust. And I think that's kind of where you gauge what kind of filters you set up.
I think, right. And looking at that, because I remember when I got my cat Coco, I was living alone in my apartment for a bit. And I had to drive her. So I had to separate her from her mother, right? First and foremost, which is already a big deal. Despite the fact that they were like already weaned off and everything, it's still a big deal to be separated from your mother. And then to do that, go into a really loud car for a good 10, 15 minutes, walk all the way into this new room where it's just so big and spacious, and you're this tiny little thing with this giant creature who has kidnapped you and taken you to a second location.
8 secondary locations.
and you're meant to just be okay with it. And so I remember thinking that, like, just thinking what I had done to her in that moment to bring her there. And it's just like, it's kind of a big deal. And so the fact that she didn't want, that she would like hide under the bed and didn't want to like be pet or make too much contact with me made sense. But what had worried me was like the fact that she was stopping that from like letting her eat and from her like drinking water. Like she did not move from under the couches. I would come home from work and she was still there, food untouched. And it was like really concerning. And I remember that like I hadn't felt that kind of concern for something in a bit, because I'd been living on my own. I'd kind of just shelter myself into just my own thing. And it was just me that I was trying to survive. And now I had somebody else in on me with the deal. And that's, for me, that was a really big deal, because now I'm taking care of not only myself, but this other creature who I now have to get to actually trust that I can take care of her. And so I didn't know exactly how to do that, except by being compassionate to her, to try to be as like down to her size as possible, make sure that I'm not threatening her. And eventually when she would get to me, I wouldn't try to like snatch her up immediately, like, haha, fucking got you, about time. Like I'd have to be slow with her. I'd have to be really slow with her and gentle, because she was still trying to build that bond. And I think that's the most important thing you can do in like, not even just forming relationships, but experiencing a connection with somebody. And by that, I mean like a connection could be as simple as like making an order at McDonald's, Doug. Because you are connecting with somebody at that point. Like they've had a whole day. They've had just as much like, they've had a whole different experience from you in the same day that you're having. And they're right next to you at that moment. And just for that moment, you have that second to connect with them. And I think if you're the kind of person who will make that connection like a miserable moment for somebody, then you're a bad person in that moment. You can change, but in that moment, you're a dick.
Yeah. It really is when you think about it, given everything, everything every person is capable of doing, it is so easy to ruin someone's day just out of
Right?
him. And you don't think about how much effort we put into every interaction that we have to not come off as a dick, which is a good thing. I feel like that's a good. It's that it beats the alternative.
It's a conscience. Yeah, it's good to have.
Yeah. And it sort of makes you think like these people who aren't able to, either they don't understand, or they don't read like social cues very well, or this and that. It makes you sort of wonder like how other people's perspective of them is likely skewed, because they may not be a bad person, but they don't know how to sort of jump through these hoops that like most people are very used to. That's it's just second nature. It could be actually very hard, and so it makes you think like how do other people perceive? First of all, how do other people perceive like me? Like how am I perceived by others? And also people who aren't able to navigate this social acrobatics, I guess. How are they perceived, and how does that line up with like who they are in reality?
Yeah, no, it's funny that you said social acrobatics, because like that whole earlier when I was talking about like the social context and the mannerisms and all that once again is a really small part of like what we do on the subconscious, and for some people that is what they think about the entire conversation. Like that's just how it is for them. So it's not so much that that's subconscious. That part is now really, really conscious, because they've realized that for other people it is subconscious, and they don't need to put in that effort as much to be able to read that. But in order for us to display that so they can read it off of us is a very different thing. And that's a very conscious effort for something that's, for the most part, for most people, just not something they think about. And so social acrobatics is definitely a really funny way to put that.
Yeah, I just that's what it feels like. It feels like this sort of jumping of hoops. When you sort of look back at it with fresh eyes.
Yeah, the very specific things we got to go through in order for this interaction to go correctly. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very strange dance. One that I enjoy researching immensely. I love just like thinking about how conversations flow. I think that's so fun. It's like its own YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah, that was most of my undergrad.
Yeah, that's human behavior is funny. I love it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, going back to that social acrobatics, like I think once we do encounter that, how we react to it is so important. Because I remember watching this video, and I'll find it in a later, because I don't remember the title right now. But it was about a bunch of therapists who were in training, and they were going to see this one client, right? And the client was late. She had texted the head therapist that was training on the other ones that the trains were running late. And so the therapist the head therapist took this as a moment to kind of test everybody's intuition there. And she asked them, what do you think really happened? And so immediately everybody started coming up with these lies for her, kind of. Not that the train was running late, but that maybe the drive-through line was too long, or she didn't set her alarm right, or the traffic was bad. Something like that. But none of them were just like, what if the train was running late? What if that's all it was? And so it's this idea that like we see what somebody else says, somebody else's actions, we observe what they do, and we attribute something to it. And I think a lot of the times we attribute something negative to it. It just kind of comes naturally, especially when it comes to strangers. And so what trust is being able to let your guard down in that kind of situation, not feel like you have to be doing all that, pretty much.
And you're saying like trust in reference to like just like personal relationships, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in any connection, like I guess we all operate on a certain level of trust that everybody is doing their best, kind of. Like we go on the road and we're in the, like you've heard this before, we're in like these fucking big just hunks of metal going like 80 miles per hour down the highway, hoping everybody else knows the rules so we don't kill each other on the way.
Yeah, making sure that no one else wants to play bumper cars.
Yeah. Exactly that.
I guess that does require some degree of just passive trust on for everyone around you. That's interesting. You think yourself guarded, and so you have to go on the road.
Yeah. And there's that kind of trust goes on so many different levels. Like realizing that once again, the people that are running our government are also human who make very human mistakes, and that's why we got to be more careful about who we elect in. Stuff like that. But it can also go on a deeper level, like I don't remember the entirety of the poem, but it ended with a line that said, I remembered it was my father's first time on earth too. And so it's about that trust that they're also trying their best. Like your parent was also trying their best. So like it goes from the level of these government officials all the way up here that I probably will never see in person are trying their best the same way my parents are trying their best to raise me. Or at least we're all going through the same thing that's in life, which is like trying to go through it. And so we're all supposed to trust that we're trying our best on living and continuing to survive with each other.
You don't really realize how often it's someone's first time doing something. You kind of, I mean, this kind of goes back to our theme of beginnings, but I'm in the process of planning a wedding. And, you know, people give me all these questions like, oh, like when are you planning to have it? Like what kind of like weather are you looking for? Like what's the color code? Where are the flowers? And I've just been telling people, be like, I'm not sure. I've never been married before. I've never planned a wedding. And so I asked my dad, and I said, like, how did you where did you get all like the ideas for your wedding? And he was like, oh, I don't know. That was my first time being married too. And so you do kind of think like, wow, maybe it's okay to not know everything because no one else does the first time that they do it.
Yeah. And nobody's going in with a manual either. Like you just kind of got to wing it.
Unfortunately, you can look up all the articles you want, but there's no instruction manual for 90% of the things that we have to do for the first time.
Yeah. One thing for me was that I like play a lot of music. I don't know if you knew that, but I go out, I gig around town, and I play like a lot of new things, like new events, like public events, private parties, like stuff for churches, weddings, and like I did all those for like the first time before, and it was kind of like somewhat kind of weird because I didn't know what to do. And so, like, I just kind of followed what everyone else is doing who's done this before. But if you think about it, they're in my position too. Like, they were doing this for the first time, and they were following everyone else.
Yeah, it's just kind of like our part in that circle of life.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like, I get what you mean, because I was doing that too when I was playing with our deal. Where just a lot of the songs I didn't know. Like sometimes I'd never heard of the song before. Like they would start playing and the entire song, I didn't follow a single word, nothing. I didn't know what was played, and it has exited my mind by the time the song is finished. But I did play the song because, like, despite it being the first time, I kind of had that idea, that grasp of it. But a lot of the times we're like kind of forced to improvise that, because we don't know exactly how the song's supposed to go, and so we kind of got to feel it out based off how the bass is moving and stuff like that, and other cues. And that's that part's pretty hard. Having to do that, it's a lot better to know ahead of time what music we're gonna be playing. But I just remember a lot of the times, like for the both of us, we're just thrown into songs, and it was like, okay, it's in this key, and then we just have to figure it out from there, and that's all the instruction we get. And this isn't to try to flex, but I guess like to take it back to the lesson, it's like it's this idea that we're not always going to know exactly what to do and how to do it, but if we force ourselves to start, like that bass player was going to start playing no matter what. Like that guitarron was going to start getting plucked whether I was ready to strum or not. And so if I wasn't catching up to the music, I was going to fall behind. And so all with the simple instructions of like, we're in this key and it's this type of song, I had to figure out everything else.
Sometimes it feels like the whole world is held together by a bunch of people who are doing this for the first time in an unspoken agreement, not to point and laugh.
Yeah.
And
We point and laugh a lot.
Yeah, not to do it too much.
Yeah.
Keep subtle.
But you got cat hair on your Cheetos now, huh? Yeah, no, it's really important to carry that with us, because if I think a large disparity of like when it comes to respecting other people isn't to like, I think people get that twisted because people think respect is like this display of authority or something like that, when respect is just like honoring the person that they are. It's knowing the kind of person that person is and accepting them for it. I know that sounds problematic when it comes to the idea of people who are just like assholes, like but at the same time, what like respecting them would mean kind of like giving them that space to just vent over there, or give them the space to actually learn how to use their words and like be mindful of what is going on so that they don't have to remain angry anymore. And that would be a more like, those are two different ways to be compassionate in a situation. One to yourself, where you don't have to deal with that like huge negative energy that's around, or one that you sacrifice that for a bit and learn what it is that's going on with that person so that they can get back to that. And then eventually you guys share the same level where you're just evened out and at peace.
I've always thought of respect as a sort of like there's two different kinds. Like you either respect someone because of their achievements in the past, or you respect someone because of what you know that they're capable of moving forward. And I think like with those two like criteria in mind, like everyone is deserving of respect, but not everyone will be responsible with it, I guess. And so, but that shouldn't sort of dictate whether or not you are, whether it is freely given, because it does still have to be earned to some degree, but that is. You can sort of judge it on those two criteria. Like, do you think that this person is worthy of it either because of what they've already done or because of what they could do?
Yeah, and I think our judgment of it is what would drive that sacrificial compassion that I was talking about at the end. Because if it's not somebody who's willing to grow, putting your effort and your energy into that is just gonna be a dead end. And so you have to know that person is at a point where like you putting that time into them isn't just going to be drained and wasted. It's something that they're going to start to like keep within their glass. I've told you about that metaphor before. The like think of yourself as a glass and like have your joy overflow, that type of stuff.
Right.
Like,
then it overflows into others.
Yeah, what you keep inside of your glass is really important, but if you're like never letting your glass fill in the first place, or you refuse to seal the cracks in your glass, right? That was a little funny of a sentence, but if you don't repair that and you're constantly leaking, like then why would you put your own energy into a cup that's just going to leak with somebody who has no will to repair it, who's just going to let it continue to leak? I think our judgment of that can be twisted and it can be biased because we're definitely not perfect with judgment. I don't. Human beings are not capable of perfect judgment. I don't think.
No, anyone who thinks that they're capable of perfect judgment just proves that humans are incapable of perfect judgment.
Exactly.
That proves that their judgment is flawed.
That's a little bit of a self-fulfilling sentence, but it's how to describe that. I don't know. I just lost my train of thought there. I'm not gonna lie.
It was there somewhere.
It's there.
Yeah.
I can hear it, but it's really off in the distance, so I'm gonna let it come back to me later.
Kind of if I might bring this up, thinking about it's the new year. We're talking about beginnings. Do
Of
you guys
course.
have any, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any sort of resolutions that you want to try to fulfill this year, or not even try to fulfill, but just try to work towards something different?
For sure. I feel like I've been talking a lot. So I'm gonna let either Boston or Double go first on resolutions. Or do you not have any right now? You need some time to think.
I haven't really made any resolutions for this year. I actually haven't made any resolutions at all, ever.
That's understandable. I don't know about resolutions because that doesn't sound right either. But I definitely do have things that I do want to grow towards. Like this is definitely something I've wanted to do for a long time. And I never knew how to start it, honestly, because I didn't know what it was supposed to be about. And the first time I had the idea of starting a podcast, it was definitely a little bit self-centered. I just thought me and my friends were funny and that would be enough. But I wanted there to be more to it, and I wanted it to have a platform for growth. And so now I get to start that, and that's really exciting. So being kinder in general towards every situation, everybody, everything is something that's going to be on my mind all year. That's the biggest one.
It's always a good thing to work towards.
Boston, not to put you on the spot, but you got anything to say?
Yeah, so as far as resolutions go, it mostly goes for me, it's pretty personal stuff, but I was recently diagnosed with bipolar. Some of you guys already know that, and so my resolutions this year mostly go down to figuring out things to do with that, how to navigate that, meds that go with that, stuff like that. And the reason, I don't know, I think the hardest part of that is the fact that I am also in grad school. So I have to find a way to prioritize the right things at the right time, you know?
Yeah, that balance of figuring yourself out at the same time, still continuing through grad school, huh?
Yeah, because I mean, grad school is a pretty big priority, and it's also I work for the school, so that's where I make my money, and it's just complicated because this navigating bipolar, it's still a relatively new diagnosis, so navigating that is not an easy thing to do while I'm trying to also prioritize school. So my resolution is to find a little bit better work-life balance and try to get some healthy habits going, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. That's a pretty good one.
That does actually remind me. I'm not even going to pretend like I know anything more than the average about bipolar, but when I I think it was my senior year of high school, so right as I was starting to make the transition over to college, that's when I was diagnosed with diabetes, and I had sort of a similar conflict of life, right? I had these two things I need to manage, both of which are really big. How can I make the most of it? And I don't think I could have failed more. It was I like my health. Plummeted is probably too dramatic of a word, but it was not great, and I think I finished that first semester with a GPA of 0.3, which I didn't even know could go below 1, so if there's one thing I learned that first semester, it was that it can go lower.
There's always something lower than rock bottom, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Which is good, because then all I can go, the only way to go is up. But I definitely knew that it's maintaining that sort of balance is obviously very important. But what really made it sort of hit home was realizing that if I didn't take care of my health, maintaining my grades was a lot harder rather than the other way around.
Yeah, that's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But sort of answering my own question with resolutions, I didn't have anything like super significant or just want to hear is I just need to go to the gym more. I didn't go to the gym at all.
Yeah.
It's I always thought it was a really refreshing tradition, if you want to call it that.
No, that blank slate mindset, like at the beginning of the year, really helps. Like, consciously, I do know that it's just another day, and it's just the continuation of time. But it's really good to know that, like, as a collective, we all still believe that we could just like wipe that slate clean and continue going. Right? Like we don't have to. It's kind of like a collective forgiveness in a way. Like we don't have to continue to live the way that we lived last year. We can drop all that baggage, all that stuff, and this is the perfect time to shed that. Similar to like spring cleaning, except I don't think that one's as widespread.
Yeah, that's honestly why I should make my resolutions to clean more.
Yeah.
No,
Me too.
That sort of blank slate mentality is I think in a lot of ways healing. Just sort of like you sort of, it's easy to fall into that sort of what's it called? There's a word. It's the like sunken cost fallacy. Like, I'm too far in to ever. I've dug myself too deep. I can't make it out. But then, new year, you brush yourself off, give yourself a resolution to be better, and suddenly you're, at least mentally, you find yourself out of that hole, and you can either choose to start walking or grab a shovel.
Yeah, it bringing back that metaphor. It's like this is the perfect time to decide if you want to plant that tree, instead of like regretting that you didn't do it 20 years from now. That the new year is the perfect time to just plant and let it grow.
We're gonna bring it home.
Yeah. It's all I have that sitcom brain. It's all got to come back together at some point.
Full circle.
But yeah, so what did we start off with? Just like starting things and then how to continue over those hurdles, huh? That was the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess it's not the right place to talk about finishing things, but how do you start to get towards that mindset that things are going to finish? Like once you're about to accomplish something, what are things that you start doing to prepare yourself for the next phase? Because at the start of something is always the beginning of a new thing. Like once again, the yin and yang. Like it's there's a dichotomy to everything.
I think I more stick to the mindset that things aren't meant to be finished. I guess. Well, that's not true. Like it's especially if I look back to like creative projects like writing a song or like writing a book. you can either choose. I choose not to see it as finishing a project, but sort of just like springboarding onto the next one, because I think there's sort of like an innate fear that you walk up this mountain, you build this thing up from nothing, you create this thing, but then once it's finished, you're back down at the bottom of the mountain, and it takes a lot of momentum to keep yourself moving forward. And so I guess my mentality is that if I treat the end of one project rather as the beginning into another one, then I'll keep moving up that mountain.
And that's kind of beautiful because like Hannah Montana already said it, bro. But
oh my god.
Yeah, you know what I'm getting at. There's always going to be another mountain. Always going to want to make it move. Like that. It's a really important thing to understand. That is that. Yeah, I guess things aren't really going to finish. You can think of it kind of like Sisyphus. Honestly, you're going to push that boulder to the top. But if you think the top is like the goal, the end goal, the accomplishment, then you're going to be stuck rolling that boulder to the top. Instead, if you embrace that, like, this is just the one day in a part of, like, this is just one of the times I'm going to push it up. Not because getting it up there is what matters, but the fact that I'm moving is what matters.
Do you think Hannah Montana had a poster of Sisyphus in her room that she like stared at while she was writing that song?
No, but I can imagine it now.
Yeah, it makes sense. There was one more.
A real philosopher of our time, Don.
Yeah, the famous 21st century philosopher Hannah Montana. There was another. I think it was another quote that is something to. Oh, you know what? It was my old band teacher who I hated, but he did have one thing that stuck with me. No, it was my middle school band teacher. I hated him, but he did have one thing that did stick with me. So I guess he did his job. It was that. Perfection is unobtainable, but if we chase perfection, we'll achieve excellence. And it's like that. Yeah, I know. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because if you're chasing perfection, you're never going to reach that goal, but you're going to get really close. And so,
and really close is pretty fucking good, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you can't be perfect, if I can't be perfect, I want to be the next best thing. And so As much as I disliked Mr. Blanchard, he did have that effect on me, so that's good, I guess.
Well, I'm glad that there was still a lesson that came out of that. a really important one, too.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm thankful for that.
But yeah, so when it does come to, I guess it's not just so much finishing it, but just like we don't finish the year. Like it's not finishing a year and continuing on to the next one. It's just the continued passage of time.
Yeah, I guess it's just another day.
It's just another day.
I went out and bought a new calendar, but really just the cycle begins again.
Time was invented by capitalists to sell big calendars.
Damn capitalists.
But yeah, no, I mean, but it's still really good that we can have that mentality, I guess, because if we want to keep going on with Sisyphus, the idea that just that could be a checkpoint, it could be a rest, like that's a part of it. Like getting to the top of the mountain at some point is a part of it. Just as much as like coming down from it is a part of it, just as much as rolling up from it is a part of it. And so being able to accept that entire experience, the struggle of pushing it up, the rest of getting it to the top, and that pain of having to start it all over again as you watch it roll down. If you can embrace all of that, every single part of that experience, which is like your life, then you can truly be content. You can truly be happy, and with that, you can truly grow compassion.
Well said. I started to think of like working on a project as like a road trip. You go so far, and technically you can stop at any point. But if I stop halfway between here and Florida, then I'm gonna be in some place I don't want to be.
Yeah.
So I gotta commit. You have to put yourself in the mindset that like retreat is an option, but it's not one that I'm gonna take lightly.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Yeah, because you don't want to like end up in Alabama. Like you want to keep going.
I'd like to move past.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I really don't know what to continue adding here, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, there's large swaths of silence in this podcast because we're all thinking with our hands on our chins.
Yeah, no, I enjoy that a lot. It's really nice to be that deep in thought.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, the beginning of the ends, I guess, is a way to kind of put that chapter together, because it's not the idea that you're going to be finishing something. You can keep going beyond that. And if you keep moving with that mindset, then you keep moving, and that's the most important part.
This makes me want to start a new project.
Yeah, no, that's the hope. That's why I really wanted to start this, because I had been stuck. I had a large period of time where I was just stuck, and I barely recently discovered this, that I was capable of growing, and it was kind of insane to me. I was like, oh, holy shit, I can do that. Like, I can change the way that I think. And realizing that, especially with like how much I had convinced myself I was done and that I was gone, I was still able to like find a way to keep going. And I know that this isn't the end, right? Like, there's gonna be times where I'm gonna think it's really hard to keep going. It's gonna be really hard to just like continue living sometimes. It gets like that. That's just life. And so I know that with that, I can also continue to move, and just reconnecting with my faith through learning different other faiths. Like, it was that wasn't correct grammar. Anyways,
I get the idea.
being able to like bring the idea that I can connect everything back to just like a few strong themes, and that those themes have led me to just be better, be fresher mentally to where I was before. I really thought the next step would be to bring that to other people. And I knew that like just by hanging around like people like you, especially at work, I noticed it, where the culture is just very different. It's not so much that like humiliation, like as much drama as there is there's also these groups of people who have genuinely formed bonds with each other, like really good friendships and deep connections that are going to last them probably not a lifetime. I don't know if I can say a lifetime for sure, but a really long time. And that's the perfect place to plot something like that. Because from there, as those people do go, because they will go from there, they have to. They're not going to stay at that theater forever. I know that for a fact.
Right.
Hopefully they can take those lessons and continue to spread that same idea, those same themes. And those themes are of being compassionate. And so that's why I wanted to start this in the first place. That was like the foundation of it. And so I mentioned earlier, like when I started the podcast, it was like for just to get myself out there. Now I have a reason to get myself out there. But I couldn't have found that without any of the struggle that I did have. I did have to go through that, learn all these things that we've talked about here, and put them open and just out there with my mind, until I could get to this point where I'm at now, where I'm able to hold this kind of discussion with you at this depth, at this level. And I know that we could even swim deeper. I know we're people that are capable of that. Because of the time that I spent with you, I know that you are capable of that. And so that's why I invited you specifically.
Oh, shucks.
And I think you're somebody who can embody that message really, really well.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is there are few things in life as gratifying as a really like meaningful conversation. Just words being traded and like ideals being discussed. It really just helps you. I mean, I sound like broken record at this point, but it just helps you grow. It just helps you like become more of what you can be.
Yeah, it opens up your mind. It takes you from being like a potted plant to being just like outside, like in the wild. Like you already had that area to grow your roots. You had that pot, right? And now you got to go plant it outside where it can grow to its full capacity. You got to let the goldfish outside of the bowl so it can get as big as it possibly can in whatever pond it goes in.
That's a good analogy for that. I like that. Also, I would like to go on record and say that Boston didn't just dip his computer. He's experiencing some technical difficulties.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw the message. Just message.
No, I didn't see the message yet. But okay.
I didn't get your message.
Yeah, he told me that it was updating earlier. No, I know that wasn't it. That's why I was like, I kind of just let it happen. I figured he'd be trying to get back.
Yeah. But sorry, going back on topic. No, I'm a firm believer in that. I mean, humans are granted this amazing superpower that we're able to, you know, open our mouth and insert ideas into other people's heads. And it's like, if I were to like just run up to a random person in the street and yell like giraffe in a bow tie, that image is now in their head whether they want it or not. And, you know, using that power for good is something that we're doing right now. Is this trading of, you know, we've like had these thoughts bouncing around in our minds, and now we're putting them out there in one level, like from me to you, and for like to anyone else who would listen.
Yeah, and that's the once again, like I think when it comes to that, it needs to be a healthy communication, and that's can only be done once again through means of compassion. We're capable of just letting those ideas completely flow out of the other person, and just as long as those words that we're putting out there are from good energy, which I mean, I think we've had, not to pat ourselves on the back, but I think I think we've gotten that where it's not negative energy that we're putting out into the world, and with that we're going to be able to grow a lot more of that positivity around us. And once again, letting the cup overflow, like having so much of that other people are just capable of feeling it themselves.
It really is amazing to think of how easy it is to just put the minimum amount of effort in to put some good out both into your own life and by proxy, like into the lives of the people that you are involved with and the people that you touched.
Mm-hmm.
And it like we were talking about it earlier. It's also frighteningly easy to do the opposite, and it's a miracle that it's so easy to like restrain that. It's because I would argue that we don't really have to restrain it at all. It's not like there are like I'm not like biting my thumb trying not to yell obscenities at someone when I pass them on the street.
Oh, we're very different then.
Oh god, yeah. I don't know. I guess I can't say anything about you. But it's you just put towards that minimum amount of effort, and you are able to just change the world around you, and it's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's just like how easily we can mold the things that are around us. Like that energy that we have is capable of resonating with others And we kind of have to take responsibility for the way that we resonate with others. Because we're responsible for the vibes that we put out into this world, like it or not.
We're responsible for our own reputation.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I think just by doing that and simply by putting out that goodness in there, it comes back. What comes around goes around. Like I think that's just the way the world works. And if you're gonna be putting like a ton of negative energy, it'll follow back because it'll track with the people around you. It'll track in your surroundings and it'll just follow you.
People are capable of incredible things and even more incredible consequences.
Exactly. Yeah, we're the amount of good and evil human hands are capable of is pretty. I don't even know how to put it.
It really makes you feel every emotion at once.
Yeah, it's insane that we are capable of that entire range.
So, goddamn it, you can start that project and you can follow through.
Exactly. You wanna make that Lord of the Rings fanfic? You go write that.
I'm way out of here. I'll send you the PDF.
Hell yeah! Banana bread, dog.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right, you got anything else for me? That was the end of my point.
I think no. This is a pretty good place to say we'll continue it another time.
Yeah, I look forward to the next time if I have the honor of being on.
Of course, I think I'm gonna do recordings on this day weekly, honestly, because I'm off from work just consistently. And so if I can just get on, wake up before noon and get this stuff set up, it'd be really easy to just have a hour and a half, 2 hour conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be great to get some other people that like either kind of work or just get some fresh perspectives.
Just in general, yeah. If you can think of anybody, we'll join. And then to anybody listening, of course, like that extends to you. Go ahead and share. Of course, subscribe so you can keep listening to this. If you have any topics that you'd like to hear discussed, any themes like that you would just want to hear a conversation on, go ahead and just leave a suggestion. We have plenty of minds that we could come together to make it happen.
I am fairly confident that I would be able to talk about just about anything for at least an hour, hour and a half.
I could listen to myself for hours, yeah. But I could listen to this for more. So I'm glad you came on. You have a good one, man.
All right. We'll see you next week.
All right. You have a good one, Ryan. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.